I might have overswung there. That's one of the few
Oh,
things that I
okay, hold
really
on.
want to work on.
Oh, they're pushing.
Oh my god, you did just kind of get blown up, to be honest with
Playing
you.
for life right now. I'm playing for life
Yeah,
right now.
I exploded.
Fucking shot on the game. Play for life. Just play life. Play life. Play life.
Alright. So, here, to be honest with you, that triple swing was kind of fucking crazy from them, but they don't really have too much that they can do here in the situation. Honestly, this position you're playing here is perfectly fine to play, like up here. You can totally play right here and look down rather than having to physically be there. A lot of the things that I see, like support players do, is that when they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna come help you," right? They physically walk over to come help. When you realistically don't need to do that, right? You don't need to physically walk over to where they are to come help them. You can, if you hold right here and your teammate gets cracked and backs up, you can literally hold this exact staircase from where you are right here, right?
Yeah, I could maintain line of sight over them and the enemy team without actually risking myself.
Yeah, exactly. The goal of what you're doing here is you're trying to, well, how we take peaks is important to understand with our goal, right? We have several. We can have several goals when peaking and what we're trying to do. If we're just trying to trade damage, right? Trading damage results typically in kind of medium peaks, right? Because we're trying to, see what we can do. Go in cover, go out of cover, and if we have to extend out, we can do that. 2, we can look to punish enemies. And this is literally a small peak to a wide peak. It's very situation dependent. 3, if we're trying to look, right? Looking is typically a really short angle because we just need to see, right? We're not trying to deal damage or anything. We're trying to physically see where they are, right? And I can come to you with like a bunch of different goals when peaking, right? But you always have to have a solid goal when peaking, right? What is your goal when peaking here, right? Obviously, it's the cover for your teammate, right? But you take a peak that's really wide here because you're trying to deal damage here instead of trying to hold for your teammate here, right? You're looking more so to specifically disencourage the opponents from pushing. Okay, when you're doing that, you don't need to take as wide angles like this. In fact, if your teammate just got fucked up on the angle, and then you peek the exact same angle, what's gonna happen to you?
Oh, I'll
Probably the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
You're right. This is really important to make sure you like. It's kind of like the same logic as your teammate going. They have a craver, and then they peek, and then they get cravered, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna hold now, and then you go to the exact same corner, and you go to hold. Well, what's gonna happen to you, right? You get cravered. Yeah. So if you were peek an angle that your teammate's on, that they take a shit ton damage from, you're probably gonna also take a shit ton of damage, right? Specifically, when someone's being the aggressor in an angle, right? You're the one defending the angle, right? You're trying to hold the angle off from somebody. So, if we draw a situation, right? Let's just draw like, oops, let's use a bigger. Let's just draw like a wall right here, and let's draw like a box like right here. Okay. So, if there's somebody attacking the angle, right? They're the ones shooting you first, right? Our goal when we're trying to deal damage to the enemy is obviously to deal more than we receive. A good way to minimize the impact of damage we receive is to avoid the opponent's crosshair, right? If we logically think about where an opponent's going to aim, they're going to aim about here, right? If they aim too close to the wall, right? Obviously, they're not gonna, if you swing out, they're not going to be able to shoot you. If they're too far, well, if you swing short, they're not going to be able to hit you. So they're typically aimed for like a midway right here, and you should aim for midway like this, right?
Aim for midway?
Yeah, like so. I can visualize it in game really well. Literally, if you go to a corner and just think about where an opponent is probably going to peek from if they walk around the corner, you don't want to do it too close. You don't want to do it too far, right? If you do a midway like this, right? This is typically where which everybody's going to aim. If someone's attacking an angle, they have an expected value of where they're going to be, right? Of where you're going to be, because again, they're the ones that are manipulating the angle. If you're defending the angle, you're trying to stop them from doing this. But if they're attacking, they have an idea of where you're going to be, right? Their expected value for you is somewhere in this area here, right? We always want to try and make sure that we are avoiding where opponents are most likely to see us at. Okay. So for example, if your teammate peeks, if your teammate peeks right here, and then you go and then they go back and cover, and then you walk in the same exact spot, you're in the exact same expected spot that the teammate's gonna see you in, or that the enemy's gonna see you in, right? You don't obviously sometimes it is good to physically go there but that's typically for really close swings, right? If if they're team fighting and like they're gonna like wide swing you, that's when it can be good to just take your teammate's place. So not only do you physically body block, but you're holding space physically with your body. When it comes to a lot of peeking, you always want to make sure that you try and hold. You want to be very dynamic in how you play. Dynamic meaning ever changing. You never want to just take the same situation the same time a million different ways, right? A really good example is Shroomer building. Old Shroomer building, like the one in World's Edge with the zip line and blah 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 blah, right? That building was really good because it was really really dynamic. Fights could happen in a trillion different ways, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you incorporate movement tech and all that bullshit like zip line dancing and mantle jumps things like that. Fights go like 100 different ways, 1,000 different ways, right? And if you watch really good movement players, the fights always look a little unique in some way, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing's true for peeking angles and stuff like that. You should always try and do something new every time. Like if I peek the same way 3 times, what am I gonna do the 4th time? The same thing, right? The different way. So looking back at your VOD here, right? The staircase here is really good because it blocks the midway of how they have to actually get to you guys, right? They can't deal damage to you from down here at all, unless you're playing the exact peak that you're playing on. But you can play right here and look down and punish them for trying to walk up on you, right? And you have better cover here, right? Excuse me. How much cover do you have here? 0, right?
Yep.
How much cover do the opponents have here? Also 0, right? But if you're here, how much cover do you have? Pretty like you have those little guardrail, right? How much cover do the opponents have if they're walking up the staircase? 0, right? So this is naturally a better place for you to be, especially if you're not trying to play entry, right? If you're entry, this is a good thing to do. But I would be VOD reviewing your Bangalore who just ran up here to go peek that and lost the peak, right? I wouldn't be VOD reviewing you doing this, right? Your job as anchor in a lot of fights is typically to reinforce space and make sure that space is controlled by you, and that's how you do so. Okay?
I was playing with the 30-30.
Uh-oh.
And it was a giant miscom issue. So I was just poking there. And basically that's what I was doing. I had the plan B for if I ever get poked and I'm low on HP, I would just queue it back into the building.
Uh-oh.
And that would happen later.
Fucking bitch ass.
Bro, I'm just inside. My next shop I'm putting inside.
Crouching is really bad, by the way. You went, oh wow. You could have died right there.
Yep. That was a miscom issue. I saw my teammate. I thought he was going to body block for me, but he went back in.
Yikes.
I mean, even then, right here, you get shot with a sentinel, right? Even if your teammate body blocked for you, you would have died anyway, because snipers can collat.
Yikes.
Oh, that's true.
You would have died anyway.
I have no movie.
Wait, the sentinel has collat?
Yeah, all snipers and all sniper weapons except for the wingman, like sniper, like things you can put a 6x on. All the weapons can collat.
Bro, I'm just inside. It's so
but
safe in
not
this. Go
the marksman weapons like the
No, the snipers, like the 6x
Where'd you
weapons,
die?
the 6x 48.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So here, even if your teammate body blocked for you, you would have gotten collatted and died. It's important to it's important for 2 things here, positioning wise. When it comes to overall positioning, your position here is good on paper, but contextually it's not good. It's important to understand why high ground is good in certain situations and why it's not. Okay. So do you know why high ground is good? There's like 8 reasons, so you probably know at least one of them. Yeah, high ground, like up
High
here.
ground, like you can play around with height as a cover, and it gives you a better line of sight on almost everyone else that is below.
Exactly. Yep. Cover LOS. Did you know it's also easier to aim?
That I didn't know, but that might make sense on why I keep seeing like scenarios that focus on that.
Yeah, exactly. It's easier to aim for 2 reasons. I'm gonna write easy to aim twice. So it's easier to aim for 2 reasons. One, if you're looking down somebody, right, what are you gonna see? You're gonna see their head and their torso, right? You're very rarely gonna hit leg shots from looking at somebody from above. So you're more likely to hit headshots. 2, there's the idea of absolute speed and the idea of relative speed. Relative speed is how fast somebody is in comparison to you, right? So someone's really close to you, they're moving really fast, right? They're going left and right a lot. But if someone's really far away, they're moving really slow because, like, imagine me on the opposite side of like Kings Canyon, right? Like across the river. They're really slow. You just need to be able to, you should be able to move your mouse really slow to be able to hit them with like an iron sight P or something like that, right? Obviously,
Oh, yeah.
obviously a scope changes that a little bit because it, but still. So it makes it easier to aim in two different ways, right? Being top down somebody like this makes their movements relatively slower, so they're easier to hit. Cover lowest, easy to aim. 5. Control. It allows you to control a space really well, right? Because if you're on high ground, nobody else can get up to the high ground unless they use abilities or grenades, right? Somebody can't.
Yep.
They can't just climb up on you for free at all because you're just controlling it, right? But the only time high ground isn't good is so I want you to think about exposure. Exposure is the idea of how many places you can get shot from. Okay. If you're in the center of this high ground, you can't get shot from anywhere like here, right? You can't get shot by anybody playing down here, right? But you can get shot from anybody playing far over here, or anywhere that's equal ground to you, right? So if we were to draw this little graph when you're up here, right?
My next shop, I'm putting it inside.
Me, like. Here, I'll actually shoot the mini map here, right? So if you look here, you can get shot from pit side, you can get shot from back here, you can get shot from over here, right? There's 3 different areas in which you're exposed from. 3 areas to get exposed. 3 areas to be exposed from is not that bad, by the way. There's way worse situations. You can be exposed in a full 360 radius around you, which is way worse. But you always want to try and minimize how many areas you're exposed from. This is actually why playing Edge of Ring is really good, by the way. I'm not saying you should do that, but this is kind of the idea behind Edge teams. If the zone is like this behind you, and it's zone 3, right? Zone 3+, and you're on the back of zone like this, your backside is inherently not exposed, because no one can be there, right? If someone is there, they're gonna die, right? Like if someone's popping medkits in zone, you'll hear it, or you'll see them, right? They can't shoot you. So naturally, you can only be exposed in a 180 degree in front of you, right? But if there's a rock or something in front of you, right? If there's a rock like this, literally, there's only 2 directions people can come from: the left or the right, right? Skynades and shit like that start to present problems, but typically edge teams have some character that can help stabilize against stuff like that, right? But you always want to try and make sure that you minimize the places and where you're exposed, so you minimize damage intake, right? Because you physically, attention is a resource, right? You can only focus on so many things as at once. You as a person or you as a team. If you're not paying attention to things around you, exposure typically ties into that. If your team has to watch 10 different angles because there's 10 different places teams are, then you're kind of, leaving yourself to more likely to one person's going to mess up an angle or get peeked at a bad time, right? And sometimes it's not really controllable. But so on this roof here, right, the high ground is good, but because of where you are, because there's other teams in your back, they're more important than like this team, right? For example, this team does not matter at all. This team up here does not matter at all. As soon as you realize that there's a team in your back, right? Let me see. I don't know if you realized earlier that there's a team. Yeah, you realize there's a team behind you, right? I do not want to see you poke at this team at all. This team does not fucking matter in the slightest, right? What is this team gonna do? Push you all the way over there, all the way over here? I invite them to, right? I have this problem a lot. I have this problem a lot when I queue with people that haven't really played a lot of rank, for example. Me interactive map effects. Me. Why not Broken Moon? Actually, I can show a real example I had. Please load map. Please be more than 1080p. What is this? What is this 360p bullshit? Whatever. Gets the point. Gets the point done. So, for example, we would be holding this building, right? We would be playing right here, and then another team would be over here, and the zone's closing from here to here, right? I would have my teammates be poking at this team instead of shooting the people that are rotating in our back, right? Because like, why would we bother shooting this team ever, right? Like what's the actual point? Like unless you're explicitly trying to farm evo and stuff like that, but that's not the time to do that at all, right? You do this in between zone phases. So so before people are rotating, before people are doing stuff, if you know there's somebody else to shoot, then shoot this team, right? Teams that are you need to recognize which teams are a threat and which teams are actually gonna start pushing you, right? Because especially right if there's a team, I actually had a great example of this in one of my students' other games, or another game I coached recently. I don't know why this website's loading so slowly. It was something like this. There was the team was holding here. There was a team here and a team here, and they kept poking this team. But there was a team here and a team here and a team here and a team here. They had beacon scans, so they knew all these teams were here. They knew that there were a bunch of teams that would have to walk in zone like this here, right? And they just kept poking this team in front of them instead of getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like kills, right? Like they missed out on so many kills, and then a team played here, walked up here, and then a bunch of fights happened, and then they died because there were so many teams alive still, right? It's always really important to make sure that you eliminate teams as much as possible, and you make sure that your spot is protected. Especially as anchor, this is your job. It's your job to make sure that this team's not going to walk upon you. It's your job to make sure that these teams aren't going to try and contest your space and stuff like that. Especially as an anchor, it's important to make sure that you are really good at initiation. You're not entry. Entry is a different role. Entry is a character like Valk or Revenant. Initiation is kind of getting the fight started, right? Like you get the initial crack on somebody for your entry to go in there and go crazy off of it, right? You get like you're poking with like marksman weapons, you're poking with snipers, you're poking with AR stuff like that to try and get an entry for your teammate to go in. Make sense? So you should be looking to get this team the fuck out of your back, because if they do, then guess what? If you manage to kill this team in your back, you have all of run off to yourself, which is way better. You almost never want to coexist.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's not your job it is your job to make sure these teams aren't pushing you. Trying to get entry or try and get initiation damage so your entry fragger can go in and go crazy, right? It's your job to kind of make sure to secure and hold this space. If you kill that team in your back, you have all of run off to yourself, right? And that's really good. You almost never want to coexist with the team. Coexisting with the team is really bad because I mean it's dangerous, right? Both you guys are probably both gonna die. There's some building for coexisting is okay, but typically one of the two teams coexisting is gonna get killed no matter what, right? One team or both teams are gonna die, like period. Like it doesn't, and obviously you don't want to be the team that dies. So you want to try and keep teams from coexisting with you. Sometimes it's impossible because of how like fights go out and POIs sprawl and shit like that. But typically want to stop teams from contesting or from coexisting. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. Yeah, ideally, once you defend the space that you have, it's my job as an anchor for the team to reinforce and control that space.
Like here, I don't even want to see you shooting these people at all.
Dude.
Right? Like these people are behind you. You don't want to bother shooting that team up there, right? And even then, when you are
the stream isn't loading for me.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
It's cool.
But the
I think there you go.
Yeah, the important thing also is that when you're playing like a building or an area like that, right? Whenever if you're trying to poke for entry or damage or armor evo or whatever, right? You always make sure that you have a spot that offers 0 or minimal exposure from the enemies, right? Sometimes we don't have the luxury of not having any exposure at all, right? Sometimes we can get ourselves in a room where we can close all the doors, there's no windows, and we're perfectly fine, right? Or at least we can get in a spot where the windows can't see us, whatever, right? Sometimes we can't afford that, but you always want to try and minimize exposure, right? Because right here, you're exposed from the front. I legitimately think you might have been able to heal if you walked forward around here, right? Like you get shot by that vantage. I think if you literally just dropped here, they might not have been able to see you, to be honest with you. But
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but you're good.
Tatting is an issue that I have a big problem with, mostly because I just lack terrain knowledge.
Yeah, which is totally understandable. Just as a rule of thumb, try and think about where enemies can possibly come from or shoot you from, and try and just minimize those as much as possible. Just draw like a straight line from where you are, out any window, out any door, and go, okay, can someone see me from right there? yes, no, try and minimize as many possible places someone can peek you from. Remember how I said the exposure lines, like you're exposed in 3 different directions here? Minimize that to 1 or 2. Even, 0 is obviously ideal. Like, you just sit on a door and they can't shoot you, right? But that's not always doable. Make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
So here, when you're fighting this team, right, and using your bangle and stuff like that, you should always try and look to take as much space as possible. It's like here, you bang ult.
Yeah, yep. I counter ulted the Gibby ult.
Right here, yeah, you bang ult and then you just kind of like chill here. You should be uptaking space, right? You should be uptaking the space with them. So your team always has an anchor about somewhere to play, right? Your team always has an area that they control. That's kind of your job. The staircase here. You should try and get a different angle with your team and not just take the same angle.
Okay. Team shouldn't be the same angle.
You always, if a team triple takes the same angle, it's really dangerous, and that's kind of actually what happens to you guys here, right?
Yeah.
Your Wraith, like, if you look at the areas, like, this is actually a really good lesson in exposure here, right? You're exposed from the top. If you walk up the stairs here, you're exposed from the top, and you're exposed from the doorway here. The other team actually plays this really well. And then, your guy gets to double shot. Your guy walks up with his back to the other angle, right? Because he has one of 2 angles he has to look at, right? And he looks the wrong one. Well, I mean, he needs this one so they can't really get shot, but then his back's just to this guy, right? And then he gets one clipped, right? Can't really move anywhere, can't really do too much. You should always be trying to take different angles here. Like your Horizon taking a different angle, or your Horizon being over here, technically puts her on a different angle and lets her punish the Gibby, right? Imagine if right here, I know you're not entry in your initiation here. Imagine right here, when your teammates are walking up the side here, you go, okay, we don't all want to triple walk the same way. I'm gonna go up the zipline here, and then you go up the zipline and fight this guy right here that's in the room. You punish this guy. This guy swings out to shoot your Wraith. I mean, this guy actually probably wouldn't be able to shoot your Wraith here, right? If you went to the zipline here, and then you shot this guy from the inside, you probably would have been fighting a 1v1 here, and this guy Puro would have been fighting a 1v1 as well, right? He would have been able to do this perfectly okay. You're playing Bang, so you're really not the worst person to do this either, because Bang can play very dynamically. Bang can play in every single role, right? So you shouldn't be afraid, especially as Bangalore, to go in these different positions and do these things, right? Well, you probably would have been able to punish that Catalyst for that.
The problem that we had with the zips is there was a Watson felon blocking our entry through the zips.
Yeah. Wait, they have Caustic, Watson, Cat,
and a Gibby.
Oh wait, no, they didn't have. Okay, wait. They didn't have
Oh
Watson,
wait,
though. It's probably
yeah,
Catalyst.
no
It's probably
Watson.
it's probably Catalyst goo, but still, you can still. I mean, you can still tank a Catalyst goo to shoot her. It's not that big of a deal. To be honest with you.
Okay.
But it's always important to make sure that your team tries and takes as many angles as possible on a team, so you pinch them. Okay, you guys lose this fight because you guys have the worst positioning in the building possible on the stairs, right? Like here, you knock the here you knock the Gibby, and then here you do decent damage to the Caustic. You need to stop crouching. Oh my god, look at this flashbang. This flashbang is crazy. Here, your movement's actually not that bad here, because you slide down the stairs immediately, which is what you should do, right? You can't move on the stairs at all. But you need to break this crouching habit. It's really bad. It's gonna get you killed really, really hard. Crouching is really bad in this game.
Wait, what crouching habit? Actually, I'm not aware of that.
Right here. Right here, at the end of this clip, you crouch. You get lucky because he either had no mag or he shot his gun earlier and didn't reload it, so he didn't get to shoot you there. But you crouch a lot. You also crouch when you're peeking a lot, and that's the worst way. That's like even worse than peeking close range.
Okay.
Crouching is really bad because obviously it makes your block smaller, so it might bait you into thinking that it's good, right? But the important thing is that speed is more important than your actual hitbox size, because I'm sure you've tried to hit a Horizon hitting a grav cannon, right?
Yep.
You can't shoot that at all because she's so fast, right? Crouching crouching removes like all of your speed, like entirely, and it provides almost no hitbox value for it. Like, sure, your hitbox gets smaller, but not by enough for it to be an actual important factor. You've played Overwatch, right?
10 hours.
10 hours. I don't know if you played enough to notice, but the characters in that game are very floaty, right?
Yep.
They move.
They
They
are.
kind of goes back and forth. Like they zip around. Crouching is really good in that game because the characters fully commit to the animation. Super hard, right?
Mm.
In Apex, that's not really true. There's more blended locomotion, so characters kind of fluidly move in and out of stuff rather than being floaty. So the characters don't really move that much in this game. It's not worth it to crouch. Okay.
Okay, it's not worth it to crouch. I actually didn't notice I have a really bad crouching habit, but now that you've mentioned it, I do have a really bad
Yeah.
crouching habit.
Yeah, when you're poking and peeking and stuff like that, I mean, you're slower. Like if you get headshot with like a P or something like that, you take like 100 damage, and you're crouching. You have to stand up before getting like run speed. So you go back. So you go back into cover slower, which is not a good thing.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now.